A lot of product managers struggle with data, not because they aren't smart, but because no one taught them how to turn a raw data points into some kind of beautiful dashboard that they can share with clients for actionable next steps. And when you're under pressure, the last thing you want to do is to try and figure it out on the fly. In this video, I'll show you 3 AI techniques for how to analyze your data, extract insights, and then present those findings like a pro, even if you're starting with an ugly CSV and no direction at all. These are the skills that make you look sharp in client meetings and compound over time to help you fast-track your career. Let's jump right in. Before we get fancy with a bunch of ChatGPT prompts, we need to talk about the step that you don't want to overlook. Now, here's a simple metaphor. Imagine that you're going to build a shed, like a small little house, and you get some plans, you get them online, you get all your materials, you start building it, you spend hours, maybe multiple days doing it. At the end of it, it's fantastic, it looks great, it's water resistant, it's gonna survive any kind of weather system. But then, all you're going to store inside the shed is a small box. So you have the small box, and that's the whole reason why you build the shed. It's a little overkill. Now, if you knew that you were just going to store a small box, maybe instead of building this super complex shed, you actually just build like a small box big enough to house it, and then you can put it somewhere else. Or maybe you just buy a box enough to store it. And that's what we want to think about here. We don't want to overdo the work needed to be able to share those insights in an upcoming client meeting or whatever else you have. You want to do just enough to get to the next step. This is a long process, and you have to get insights. Then you typically have to kind of run this through the client, get them approved by the client, come back, maybe dive deeper, figure out next steps in terms of what to build, and so forth. Multiple steps over multiple weeks, maybe months, depending on how fast you move. So before we touch any data, I want you to run through 3 questions. Number 1, what do I want to show the client? Again, clients are busy. They're going through multiple meetings. Like this meeting with you on a weekly basis is just one of maybe 50. So you don't want to overwhelm them. You want to just show them exactly what they need to know to get them to wherever the next step is. So you want to think about the next step. You're trying to think holistically here. You're building a product. You're trying to maybe improve retention. So you want to show some metrics around retention. There's a few futures that you think could help, and that's already the next step. Number 2, what decisions could this data inform? Again, maybe your things that you're working on. Maybe there's questions the client has. How are we doing on retention? Why is the retention so low? How can we improve retention? And of course, trying to translate those questions into actual decisions. Okay, yes, we want to answer this retention question, but what decision does this actually make? Is this part of the backlog? Is this part of what we're trying to focus on for the next sprint or the next quarter? That's your focus. And third, what format do I want to present the data in? It could be a simple Google Doc, it could be slides, it could be something perhaps more interactive. Let's say if you use like a mixed band or amplitude, maybe you're showing like an actual dashboard already built, which is a handful of reports. So think about the format. And again, you got to think about what the client prefers to see. Some clients are very visual, some clients prefer to talk it out. I work with clients that they need to see the raw data. So you need to sort of send them the Excel or the SQL query or something. They'll run it on their end, and then they kind of look through the numbers. So depending on what the client is, that determines the format. Then you want to sketch a rough outline in whatever format you're doing, where you have the key findings from the analysis that you did, the supportive numbers. This may be the charts, it may be Excels, it may be raw data, and of course any optional notes that you want to add to this. It's very simple. It doesn't have to be complex. This is not going to be more than 1 page if you're going to use a Google Doc, maybe a handful of slides, maybe like a single page that fits in your computer for a dashboard. So we're not trying to do everything here. This is not an in-depth analysis. We're just simply preparing the start of the conversation that may eventually lead to a very in-depth breakdown of all the data, but this is just the starter. Spending a little bit of time fleshing out your end product will give you a huge payoff with the client, and of course it will help you avoid wasting time and effort on things that are not necessary for the next step. So let's look at the data. Let's look at the first option. Now you may think that we're about to let ChatGPT run wild on our data. It will create all kind of crazy reports, but there's actually an even easier option that we should explore before you even get to that step. Because again, we're looking for simplicity, we're looking for speed, and we're looking for something that is just going to be good enough based on what you sketched out in the previous section. Now, your data may come in Excel or a CSV. I'm going to show you my screen here. This is very common. Of course, typically you can export data into this format. So if we have this, we could upload the CSV. We're going to actually look at that in a second. But we can actually just work with ChatGPT with an Excel. This is some sample data I have here. Actually, let me make it a little bigger. just a little easier to read. You can see that this is cancellation data on a B2B subscription product, a SaaS product. And we have, user IDs. We have the plan type. You can see it's either free, business, or enterprise. We have UTM campaigns, so we have some marketing attribution data. We have industry of this individual users, which belong to companies. We have employee counts, and then we have the event count here, which doesn't really matter that much. So this is a very simple data model. Your data model might have 15, 20, 30 columns. It may be multiple files, but we're gonna use something a little more simple for our purposes here. So imagine we have this. We can now go ChatGPT and kind of work with it without necessarily uploading the file. We're just gonna maybe build some formulas, get some guidance. So let's actually take these 3 columns and let's go see what ChatGPT says. So let's tell it what data we have. So we're just gonna say, I'm working on generating some insights for a client that has a B2B product, and my CSV has the following columns. The columns are actually kind of self-explanatory, which is nice. You could probably tell that this is plan type, UTM campaign, so on. I will tell it, the CSV is on subscription cancellations, and I would like to know what key metrics or insights I could generate. Now, you may have some guidance from the client, of course, on what they want to know. Maybe they want to know why is the subscription rate so high, or how does the subscription rate differ between different plan types, between different industries. So that's your starting point. Of course, you can kind of see here, right? We get some cancellation breakdown by segment. We're just talking about that. Maybe some plan versus industry and so forth. That's kind of interesting, right? So now let's just simply get formulas from ChatGPT. So we're going to say the first column, or we're going to just say column A is a user ID. And then the other columns are as follows. Can you give me some formulas for, let's do breakdowns by segment. I just do that one. So we give it the column A, we give it the other columns, and then we ask for some formulas. There's a bunch of stuff here, some other ideas. A pivot table is kind of interesting, right? We can sort of put this into, let's actually remove that. I don't want that, right? Into a simple pivot table. We'll do plan type, then perhaps we could just do a count. So we start to get a little bit of data. Maybe we also add some UTMs, see how this looks like. And then from here, perhaps we want to start to add some other formulas here, some conversion rates based on those UTMs. Maybe we actually swap it out by industry. I should remove this, maybe move the columns. So again, pivot tables being sort of interesting, but the point here is we let ChatGPT sort of guide us in terms of what formulas we might need, what questions, and we do everything inside Excel just to get a few insights, again, just to kind of generate some bullet points they can then share with the client. You don't get extra points for complexity. Remember, our goal here is to flesh out that outline from the first section, and sometimes ChatGPT plus Excel is really just the fastest option. Now, you may run into issues where your Excel file is too big, or perhaps you just want something that's a little bit more automated. This option is for you. So let's try simply just uploading the file together. Take that. It's the same CSV we saw before. I just give it to ChatGPT first. Okay, so still trying to give us some buckets. Can you analyze the file for me for interesting insights? Let's try that. So obviously this is quite fast now. We kind of get this breakdown. It starts to generate some insights right away. Free plans versus enterprise. It kind of surfaces some interesting potential data issues, with the cancellations. And of course, cancellation coming from smaller companies. So pretty good. Now we can sort of go back and forth and start to dive a little bit deeper. Maybe ask ChatGPT for some charts if we so wanted to. But this, of course, the second option, likely the fastest. Keep in mind that depending on your ChatGPT account, the file size may be limited at close to 50 megs. If you do, you can actually just remove any unnecessary columns to kind of clean the data. You can, of course, make shorter date ranges. So instead of having last 90 days, you may have last 30 days, just to kind of get under the specific file limit. Again, remember, we're looking for patterns here. It doesn't necessarily have to include all the possible data you have, just enough that you can actually see those patterns stand out. Upload your data to ChatGPT means, of course, you can let the AI tool do all the analysis for you, and you can just worry about fleshing out that outline with the different pieces that you're looking for. Now, what if you need more than just analysis, more than just bullet points? You need charts, you need reports, perhaps you need full-on dashboards. Then this option is for you. Your data needs to live somewhere that's a little bit more dynamic, like a data warehouse. This could be like a BigQuery or an Amazon Redshift or Snowflake. Your team may already have this. It's actually very common now in most teams to have data in data warehouses. So this is something you have, you may need to get access to it. In that case, ChatGPT actually can become quite helpful just to generate the SQL queries to run those. Let's assume that I have the same columns in a BigQuery view. Can you generate a few SQL queries that will give the same insights? So actually, I do this quite a bit. I tend to work a lot with BigQuery in particular. So I have all the data already in different views or tables. So I just want to come in, get a bunch of SQL queries, kind of go back and forth on those queries, and then see what that looks like. So we have here some sample. I actually uploaded this to BigQuery. So let's actually go check it out. Give me 1 second. So I'm actually going to give it my actual view name in BigQuery. Ooh, I want that. Columns are, let's go get those. So I'm gonna tell the columns follow this format because they have the extra 2 lines before it. Tweak your SQL queries. Great. So we got some SQL queries. You can then run them, you can store them, and then now you have this dynamic SQL view. They can connect to any kind of dashboard like a Looker Data Studio or something else. So it's the same kind of concept. It's a little bit more advanced, but it's also a little bit more persistent. You can do perhaps more complicated things. Again, ChatGPT does all the heavy lifting for you by writing the SQL queries, and then from there you can kind of visualize it in different ways depending on what you use for dashboards. Now, writing SQL queries may seem intimidating, but it actually opens a whole world of possibilities, and it's really actually a really valuable skill to learn to fast track your career. Thinking about data clearly is what separates good product managers from great product managers. In the next video, I want to show you a complete data analysis process you can follow step by step that you can then use it to dive deeper into your data, even more than just this sort of surface level video we just covered. My name is Ruben, and I'll see you in the next video.